On today's After News, a former AEW World Champion is out until October.
WWE legend refuses to rule out in-ring return.
NXT beats Dynamite in the ratings.
And Matt Cardona shuts down a wild AEW rumour.
I'm Phil Chambers.
I'm Michael Sidgwick.
And this is the afternoon news.
The after news.
The after news.
Yeah,
that's the one.
Called, yeah.
That's the one. Right, Samoa Joe, you might have seen it on Dynamite. He kind of got smashed through a wall on a forklift truck by Jericho in that sort of ridiculous match that they had. It was very good fun, but you might be wondering, why did they smash him through a wall? Well, he has been written off TV until at least October because he is off to film for Twisted Metal, Discovery show thing, season 2 of that, where he plays Sweet Tooth. So this filming for that starts sort of at the end of this month and goes on through till at least October, depending on whether they run long or anything like that. So I would not expect to see Samoa Joe around on AEW TV for quite a while, but at least he definitely has a grudge feud to come back to when he does.
Yes, absolutely. Chris Jericho always keeps something for himself. This was reported by, I believe, either Dave Meltzer backed it up or PW Insider, one of those two, whichever got there first. This is interesting. It should also be noted that there are going to be presumed breaks in filming, so potentially we haven't seen the last of Samoa Joe for, what would it be, about 3 months?
Yeah.
So potentially we could see him again until then, but that's the explanation anyway for the write-off angle on Dynamite. And I will say on that, AEW does not, in my opinion, have the very best track record with these stunts. We saw the much controversial leap off the cage from Chris Jericho at Blood and Guts, which the bump wasn't never the problem. The way in which it was filmed was. We've seen like various crash pads. Eddie Kingston went through one and barbed wire everywhere. That wasn't particularly good. This one, he obviously wasn't driven through a brick wall or anything like that. It was a thin wall, but it's still, for me, it looked like a marginal improvement in how they tend to do these sorts of things. He just looked, for all the world, like he'd been impaled and crushed. So, Fair play, a good stunt in AEW, and that is basically
Got Cardona back on TV as well.
Indeed it did. Indeed it did. I'm not going to touch that one on the news ever again if I can help it. The next story is a WWE legend refusing to rule out an in-ring return, and that legend is Booker T, who was interviewed by Chris Van Vliet, and he got the question that most retired or part-time wrestlers get. Do you want to go back into wrestling? And Booker T said he's not ruling it out. He says he's halfway interested before he finally hangs it up in either doing something for his own reality of wrestling promotion, which he's done in the past, or, and to a degree, you kind of have to go, at this sort of thing. Or, on the other hand, you can just admire the audacity of it. Oh, Saudi Arabia. Not WrestleMania, not SummerSlam, not the Royal Rumble. He's just said Saudi with a chuckle. It's blood money, but there's a lot of it, and he's just been very transparent about it.
Why not?
Why
I guess
not?
That's what you want. Go and get your big fat paycheck. Do you want to see Booker T back in wrestling?
You know what? If it gets him off commentary, then I'm maybe all for it. Look, Booker T has got the sort of act, right? He was genuinely really great in his prime. He's clearly not in his prime anymore. But he's got the sort of act where he can do a lot by doing rather a little. I know he came back to do a program with Cody Rhodes, and this is years ago now, and it wasn't particularly great, and then he's slowly scaled back his in-ring activity, at least on the mainstream stage after that. But, if he can do a spinny-rooney, and he can, he's got the best face as well.
Yeah.
He's got such an awesome face. If nothing else, a Royal Rumble appearance. And he looks in absolutely phenomenal shape as well, considering how many years he's been in the game. Look, Booker T, one of the most entertaining fixtures of my adolescence. Why would I ever want to say no to that?
Exactly. Let us know down in the comments what you would want to see Booker T do as his last match, or his last flurry in wrestling, at least. But Dynamite, it lost to NXT in the ratings again.
It did.
Not the best news. I've got the numbers if you're interested. So Dynamite did 691,000 viewers, but a 0.23 in the 18 to 49 demo, which is the bit that actually matters. And NXT did 656,000 viewers with a 0.24 in the demo.
It was razor thin margin.
Razor thin. Not quite as big a margin as it was a couple of weeks ago, but this is the second time in a month now that NXT has beaten Dynamite in the ratings. I highly doubt it will happen next week or the week after, as Dynamite goes into AEW goes into a big run of Dynamites with the Dynamite 250 next week, and MJF Osprey on that, and Swerve versus Okada out of nowhere on that as well. Why the hell not? And then Blood and Guts after that, so it's a pretty big run. So I doubt this will happen again for a while, but it's not a great sign for Dynamite that this is happening again.
No, it isn't. It's not a great sign whatsoever, and I think the growth of NXT, and it is, it's a bit sort of fitful and chaotic. They had a really disappointing number, literally NXT just last week. You just need to call Joe Hendry and he'll pump your numbers up, as we all know. So it's not necessarily this huge changing of the guard, this paradigm shift, but if you're in AEW's position, it's a somewhat troubling pattern. You were in 2021 breathing down Raw's neck for their demo. In fact, they defeated Raw in the demo twice. We are a long way from there. Now, the paradigm really has shifted to the point where you are now, AEW, competing with the developmental brand, which is now very much a developmental brand. They no longer play that card of, it's just developmental. Another one Survivor Series, they don't do that anymore. It's transparently a developmental promotion. So that is, if you're AEW, it's a bit concerning. But what I will say as well is that this latest run of Dynamite episodes has been really quite spectacular. They are truly hitting form. I would like to think that it's a true response to, and it's not just NXT beating them narrowly twice in the past month. It comes on the back of a bit of I don't want to say an alarming dip. In context, they are still top 5 most weeks. They were number 1 last week. TV itself isn't in a particularly great state. Hasn't been for quite some time. But, NXT, not merely the main roster, NXT has proven that growth is possible even within a dying medium. And AEW, that's not really happening for them. I just think that they are, compared to last year, they are taking All In incredibly seriously. They haven't just got that big gate and thought, right, okay, well, we can have fun and have All Out at the same time. No, they are taking it very seriously this year. And it seems to me that there's been an internal reckoning of what they want to be, how good they can make this show. And it just feels like they've decided, you know what? We're still fighting for this title.
Yeah.
We still want to be that alternative. We still want to be the acclaimed promotion of renown. And some of the angles on Dynamite over the past 2 weeks, if you can play this hot hand, which you've suddenly maybe got, don't then lax. I think there's just an internal realization. We need to try harder, do a few more really big matches on TV, get that audience back, because the gates aren't particularly impressive either. Look, it's an adage that has never really made much sense. Like in 2019, there was a lot of chat of, I know the competition will make WWE stronger. It didn't. They had to wait a couple of years, or in a huge, unprecedented exit of Vince McMahon to get really truly red hot. But this does apply a lot of the time, just not in 2019. I really resented hearing it a lot of the time then. Maybe AEW realised, if NXT are breathing down our necks, what are we doing here? Let's really try and make something of this.
It's also going to take, obviously they've got the big couple of Dynamites coming up with Blood and Guts and Dynamite 250, but it's going to take more than that to just keep this sustaining. Absolutely. That'll give you a little bit of a pop, but you've then got to hold on to people and keep that going down the line to All In. But as ever with this rating talk, this is also not the end of AEW.
No.
This is not a catastrophe. No. It's still always near the top, at least, of the cable rankings for the night. It's still doing very well. They will still get a hefty number with their TV rights fees. It's just they probably would have liked it to be a little bit higher in this time when they're renegotiating that as well.
That is an incredibly reasonable take. On the subject of AEW, to close out this story, Matt Cardona, who's made a cameo appearance against Adam Copeland this year, and in fact had a short-term run in 2020, was recently interviewed by Kenny McIntosh, formerly of this parish, and he wanted to shut down a quite wild AEW rumour. I'm terminally online. I'm too addicted to that cesspool that is Twitter. And I never really heard this, but apparently there is a rumour going around, and there was, and hopefully this is now squashed, where Matt Cardona tried to big league AEW and demanded Sting money. Sting money. And he said it's absolutely ridiculous. He also says in the interview, look, he doesn't know why in 2020 that short-term run didn't really amount to anything, or he didn't receive a long-term contract offer. He pointed out that his merchandise sold incredibly well, and that there were lots of storyline developments that they could have picked up. For whatever reason, it didn't end up happening. That match against Copeland was a really nice surprise. The thing with Cardona for me is that he's an expert marketer. He's done really well on the indies. I love that interloper gimmick he was doing in 2021, I believe it was, where, you know, the ground built up WWE guy enters the world of deathmatch wrestling. It was so beautiful. Inspired. There was like Jerry Lawler ECW energy to it. I thought we pitched it perfectly. For me, and let us know in the comments below if you disagree. I know Cardona's got a really, really loyal and quite large following. It's with everyone. AEW is pretty full. I don't even want Ricochet there as an AEW fan. He's incredible, but I want to see more of Takeshita, you know? I want to see more of Daniel Garcia. What do you think in the comments? And Phil, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think going in, like, even just him going into AEW at the scene now, like, how long does that last?
Yeah.
Like, it's not nothing on him either. It's like, look at the amount of talent that have gone in and had a bit of fanfare. Miro and things, like, have this fanfare and then just disappear into the sort of ether within the AEW mid-card somewhere. So for me, he's doing amazing right now. He's said in many interviews that he's happy with what he's doing now. He's making more money than he ever has done before, which is a testament to how talented he is and how hard-working he is and what he's managed to carve out for himself.
He's one of the last great true independent contractors, like the true ones. He's done really, really well.
Exactly, and whenever it is that a major company comes a knocking, and I assume it will, I assume he'll just be able to pick and choose whether he even wants to do it. Maybe they're not paying him enough to beat what he's on now and the freedom of being able to do what he's doing now.
Podcasters numbers as well.
He's doing really, really well. But yeah, I think WWE is a more interesting thing for me with Matt Cardona. Obviously, he has unfinished business there, and he said that himself. But also Chelsea Green's there as well. But just killing Zack Ryder once and for all by bringing Matt Cardona into WWE is a really interesting prospect for me.
Indeed, as well. What I would like to see as well, considering how close he is with Cody Rhodes, maybe they could sort of adapt the story they told with Sean Spears in AEW with Cody. I think that program is wildly underrated and more people should talk about it. So that's one of your engagement accounts. If you want to bring that up, you can get some likes and retweets and engagement on that. Genuinely, they could do a storyline where Matt Cardona comes back to WWE, you know, he aligns with Cody, and Cody's like, you know, great to have you back, you know, you can be my backup. We can even, I'll even let you team with me. And then Cardona's like, you know what, no, I'm going to kick your head in and we can have a nice little program on the back of that. Lots of storyline potential for me, more in WWE than AEW. But that's just me. Let us know in the comments below.
Indeed. But thank you very much for watching. Click this video here to continue your YouTube journey and have yourselves a bloody good day.